strange future world where ginkgo trees have somehow become awesome and then the entirety of civilization revolves around them, we find the city of Ginkgopolis. Hey gang, and thanks for joining us at Tantrum House Studio 3. I'm Will Meadows.
And I'm Sara Meadows, and today we're reviewing the game Ginkgopolis. This is from designer Xavier Georges. This is a 1 to 5 player city building game with some area influence that takes about 45 minutes to play. We have a new second edition copy to show off today. It was originally printed back in 2012 from Z-Man Games. They have been acquired by Asmodee, and now they brought a second edition to the market. So let's take a look at how it's played.
To set up Ginkgopolis, place out your 9 starter tiles and letter discs. Give each player their privacy shields and hand tokens, and then allow players to draft character cards in order to determine your starting resources and bonuses in the game.
In the game, players will simultaneously select a card to play as an action and then reveal.
Actions include things like gaining resources, expanding the city, or building the city higher.
Once players have paid the cost, gathered their bonuses, and marked their new buildings, cards are passed and then the process is repeated.
Players will be building a bonus engine and trying to strategically own districts in the city so that at the end of the game they can score big points. In the game, you'll be playing cards from your hand one at a time, secretly revealing them and then passing the cards to your neighbors. So you'll be drafting in a smaller player count number game. You might be able to kind of keep an eye on what cards are in the deck and know what's coming up, but most of the time you're going to be playing a card and then taking the action on it. You've got 3 primary actions that you can be taking in the game. Either collecting additional resources that you'll be able to spend in the future, the tiles and the tokens that are your energy that you have to spend to build the cities, or you'll be playing a card to expand out the city or to build it up.
Yes, and in the game, when you spend those resources to build out, you have to place one of your cards where that specific letter, or one of your tiles where that specific letter is. The letter will slide, and then you'll mark that it's your now owned territory on the board. That can be scored at the end of the game if you still own it, if it is adjacent to others of the same color orthogonally. So if you have tiles that are off by themselves, where it's just one color not touching any others of the same color, it's not going to score any points for you. But you're hoping to kind of own some groupings of different colored spaces so that you can have some more points at the end of the game.
When you build up, you're going to be using the same idea. You'll play a card, it'll have a specific number on it. You have to play on that tile. You'll have to pay resources if you're changing the color from one color to another, or you may have to pay victory point tokens, those ginkgo leaves, if your building is lower valued than the tile that you're building on top of. Every time you build up, you have to add an additional token, and so the higher your building gets, the more tokens you'll have on top, and then at the end of the game, you'll score those districts. A district is any time that there's 2 or more of the same color tile touching each other, and you'll score based on the number of tokens that are on top of all the tiles in the city, in the district.
Yeah, so what are our thoughts about this game? I enjoyed the gameplay. I think it is a slightly different experience at a lower player count. It is much more cutthroat because you're seeing that same hand of cards after your neighbor has passed them back and forth between the two of you. At a higher player count, like you said, you're not seeing him as much, so you're just getting whatever you can. I wish they would have had at least a cheat sheet card for all the players in the language. They did a really good job of
making it language independent.
Yeah, they made it language independent, but I think it actually made it a little tougher to understand.
Or at least to play through that very first time.
Yeah, the first time, like, it made sense, but there are so many little nuances about, well, you play this tile and you're going to gain resources based on how tall the building is. That didn't quite come through in the illustrations on the player screens, but it does give you a helpful hint as you're playing along that you don't have to remember every single detail when you're playing. Having that cheat sheet would have been nice, but it doesn't make the game completely ununderstandable when you're playing.
Right, for sure. In the game, you're going to be trying to build out strategically where you place tiles, because the cards that you gain are going to give you some engine building abilities. So when you take your turn and you do play on top of that letter disc and move it over, you might be able to trigger 3 or 4 different abilities in front of you. At the end of the game, you might be able to score some additional victory points based on which cards you have in front. You're only getting to choose from 4 cards each time, and so playing the best of those cards to the table in front of you and trying to build that perfect collection is the meat of the game. But it's easy to get wrapped up. Maybe that's the strategy in the game. It's easy to get wrapped up just in, I got to get more tiles out, I got to get more pieces out. And so you really kind of have to focus in when you're playing.
Yeah, it is possible at the very beginning, I think even at the higher player counts more so, where you may get a hand of cards that doesn't have the resource available, and so you can play to get one. Most of the time you're going to need more than one resource to build up, so it's going to take you a couple of turns of just gaining resources. If you haven't built up yet, you may not have any of those bonuses to go with that action, and so it's going to take you a while to get your engine building. But if you are strategic and you can draft some of those character cards at the beginning that at least gives you some kind of bonus toward gaining a resource or tiles, that kind of helps mitigate that. But you're not guaranteed that you'll get something drafted from you probably will. But that engine building portion is really helpful. It's easier to do, I think, at the lower player counts because you're taking that action so many times. If you do it correctly, you won't have to spend turns just taking resources. You'll gain enough from the cards that you have spent building up, and then they get to go in your tableau.
There are some nice little things they threw in the game, like those hand tokens, because every once in a while you just get 4 cards and none of them are what you want to do. You can spend one of those hand tokens to trash your hand, draw 4 more. If you don't spend them, you get victory points for them at the end of the game. There's a lot of little things like that in the game, which that is what you were saying earlier. If you had the cheat sheet, that would help because it's a little difficult to remember some of those things. Overall, the game was enjoyable. We had a good time with it. It is meaty, makes you think some stuff. I didn't really understand the theme, but I didn't read the instruction manual, so maybe there's like a great story behind why the ginkgo tree is the center of their universe. The theme didn't really come through for me, but the gameplay mechanics did seem like they gave you some really good strategic options.
Yeah, if this sounds like something you're interested in, Ginkgopolis, the new reprint is now available at your favorite local game store. As always, if you like and share our video, we definitely appreciate it. I don't know what I was saying.
We appreciate you guys. We do. We generally do. We don't need to say that at the end, but now you know. Hey gang, and thanks.
From designer
Xavier
Georges. Ginkgopolis from designer Xavier. Sorry, I keep thinking Javier. It's Xavier because ginkgo is the name.
Ginkgo, right?
So many outtakes already.